give me something to lean on to. Just something, just give me something to dream on to. Something, just give me something to keep on to. One more thing, just give me something, just give me something.
Yak 9.
Yeah, they've got quite a few Yak 9s in there.
Superb. Canberra.
Yeah, that's the last aircraft I was just using. They've got two, well, they've got more than two Canberras if you count the American variant.
B-57.
Yeah, where are we? US. Yeah, B-57, they've got the A and the B. Which is quite interesting because they're set up very. I think the B-57A is basically.
It is the British Canberra.
Yeah, it's not armed, just like the first British one that they've got there. But the B-57B is set up very differently.
Yeah.
Set up more like a fighter.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah.
It's like a Zestorer.
What's?
Like the Germans' Zestorers. Destroyer.
Oh yeah.
In other words, fucking hell.
Yeah. Well,
just don't want to be in front of them, that's for sure.
What was interesting, because the Canberra, like when the Canberra was first introduced into Warthunder, people were more than a little shocked by how well it handled.
Oh yes.
And they were kind of thinking, Gaijin, have you fucked up again? Because there was a couple of planes on the British tech tree that actually did handle too well. One of them was the Beaufighter.
Yeah.
The Beaufighter, it did turn to, like it, what's the up and down axis, whatever that's called.
Yawing.
Is that yaw?
Is it
no,
yaw
is...
No, yawing is that
sideways.
One. Yeah, I don't know.
Pitch.
Pitch, yeah.
Yeah, it could pitch probably about, I don't know, probably about 10% faster than it should have been able to. It was very noticeable.
Yeah.
When you're in getting into a turn fight with a P-51 Mustang and the Canberras, not the Canberra, and the Beaufighters out turning it. Yeah, it's kind of there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
And that got fixed. And
although it was a very nimble for it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's still
what it was amazingly nimble.
Yeah, it's still pretty nimble, but it's it behaves like. But the Canberra seems to almost defy like it's just like whoa. When I was watching the documentary on the Canberra, and they had showed some air show footage, and and they were saying about how they were shocked how well this thing handled.
Yeah,
it was just especially for its size.
Absolutely.
And it's quite like I can't outturn a jet fighter, obviously, but I can turn sharp enough that that I can't, like they sleep that they because they'll often, as a jet, you come in boom and zoom. Now you're going still considerably slower as a Canberra than most of the jets I end up coming up against.
Yeah.
And you can get out of their way quite well, and even if they slow down, they're still quite often going a bit faster. And just having that speed disadvantage allows me to turn tighter.
Yeah.
And just about any other bomber wouldn't be able to. That's quite cool. Quite like the German line, actually. You get down here, got like rare birds like the Arada.
Arada 234. Yeah.
There's the. Where are we? Preview.
Yeah.
Amazing looking aeroplane.
Yeah, the 4-engine version never really saw combat, but
no.
Although it did fly before the end of the war, but they
just didn't have the engines for them, did they?
No, exactly. Also, the fact the undercarriage, the later one, the first ones didn't have an undercarriage.
Oh wow!
Actually landed on a skid.
Oh god, that would have been terrifying.
Which made them very vulnerable on the ground, of course.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Once they'd landed, they were a sit and duck.
Yeah.
Just target to be aimed at.
Especially at that time when
So that version there, and I think the French built a few after the war.
Yeah.
I do believe that's only a supposition, but they built a few Greifs as well, the 177,
Okay.
and some of these Arados I believe were built in France. So
Wow.
yeah,
The canopy's amazing, though, actually.
isn't it just? Yeah, it would not surprise me if some billionaire enthusiast actually builds one.
Yeah.
Or 6.
Yeah.
Like they did the ME262.
Yeah. That's actually quite different there,
yeah.
even around the canopy.
Yeah. But it really, aerodynamically, it's superb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't look out of place in today's Air Forces, to be honest.
Not so much, no, especially because it's a fairly, like the style with the, what do you call that? Way the underslung engines and that.
Yeah, the pods.
In separate pods, yeah. Rather than that sort of very dated but nice looking way that they used to do the jets, being very much in sort of either in the wing or
in the wing, yeah.
Yes, it looked very pretty, but it was an absolute bastard.
Yeah, aerodynamically in the wing is probably better. I couldn't swear to it, but the pods certainly make it a lot easier for maintenance. The fact you can just unbolt them, drop them off, and put another one on.
Yeah, exactly. Which does go a long way to. I'm not firing on all 4 cylinders at the moment.
So,
I've still got a long way to go on the German deck tree. I'm only just, where is it? The Mighty Duck. I've recently researched this one. It's fantastic.
Potential,
Yeah. The thickness of the glass.
A flying tank.
Yeah.
Well, it was designed to be flying in the infantry space. It was coming in on the deck. And it was designed to withstand light armament being fired at it in considerable quantity.
Definitely. This is the view from inside the cockpit.
Yeah.
Like,
bugger all.
The thickness of that glass, you can quite,
Yeah.
it's just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And
there is a version of that with the 75mm.
Yes, hang on.
Slung underneath, yeah.
Which
Which always model makers, if they get a chance, want to build because it's
it's
looks
very impressive.
Yeah, it looks ferocious.
There's a version of the 262 a bit like that as well.
There is with the 40mm.
Yeah, I think people call I know they call this
a bomber destroyer version, and it was used for anti-tank and things like that.
Yeah,
Not many of them.
no,
Well, not many 262s are around, to be honest.
exactly. Although more than I thought,
Yeah.
realised there was actually quite a lot made, but also quite a lot destroyed.
A lot were made, but a lot of those that were made never flew.
Yep,
Simply because there wasn't enough fuel and
Yeah,
pilots
there
to
we
fly
go.
them.
That's
There
a
we
big
go.
cannon.
Yes, I'll be back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
That's not a gun. This is a gun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's because they call more the previous one the Duck for obvious reasons, like I don't know what they called it in World War II or whatever, but in War Thunder it tends to get referred to as the Duck. Whereas the 262 with that long cannon is called, they call it the Narwhal.
Narwhal.
Which is
That's
like
a good name.
Yep.
Good name for it. Yeah.
Yep. Where are we? 262. I don't think it's where are we? Oh, maybe it is. I thought they put on a slightly different, because they got the 262s there, but I'm pretty sure they stuck the other 262 on a. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. It's not all that practical with the big sort of the really big cannons. I haven't flown this, but I watched a couple of videos and it is an extra skill to fire something like that because they do fire so slowly. Like the velocity might be high, but you take a shot and then you've got to wait for a bit before you can do another shot. And of course, especially in a plane, everything's changed.
Yeah. And especially when you're travelling at 500 miles an hour in that thing. It's
Exactly.
Just,
I mean, with practice, you do, but you can imagine how much practice they didn't get.
Yeah, well, that
It's
was the
just-
thing. You know, they were very experienced pilots, but and of course the German pilots in the war they never got rest. They were constantly in action.
Yeah.
So they either died or became brilliant, and the brilliant ones were exceptionally good, but they still didn't get practice with new equipment.
No, exactly. I was watching a documentary about the Germans, and I think it was the I don't think it was a 262 documentary, but it was in there. And just talking about how sobering it was to see footage of the flight instructor for the 262, and the lesson was carried out on the wing before the guy took off, because there were no two-seaters.
Yeah.
That was their first flight, and their first lesson was just on the runway, and it was like, this, and this, and you know, make sure whatever you do, don't do that.
Yeah. Otherwise it'll blow up.
Yeah. Talking about planes that blow up.
There were a few like that.
Oh yeah. Actually, I love this.
Oh yes.
It's just caused a lot of controversy when they added it into War Thunder. I think a lot of people just didn't even realise it had actually flown.
Yeah.
But because it had never seen combat.
Yeah.
But there's a few in there like that now. I think it was fair to put it in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One that I don't think ever flew, that made it in on the Japanese side. Actually, I think there's a few in here which never flew. This one. The Japanese version.
Yes, it did fly. It did fly.
Yeah?
Never saw
Oh,
combat.
hang on. Yeah, it did, but it was a very short amount of time in it.
Mm.
But it did fly, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely didn't see combat. But yeah, this was an interesting one for Gaijin, because there's fuck all information about it as far as reasonable amount, but it's like how long could it fly for, and that.
Yeah.
And, it ended up being
I wouldn't have said much longer than the German version, to be honest, which is
no,
about 10 minutes.
You get
Under power.
yeah. I think the German one is about 8. No, maybe it is 10 minutes. This is only 6 minutes, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But the rate of acceleration, I think, is pretty similar. And yeah, you can still get incredibly high with it.
Oh yeah.
That's just a difference I just noticed. It doesn't have the generator on the nose.
Mm.
That's interesting. Must have had no onboard power at all. Just
see, they've got the rising sun marking on the tail there.
Yeah. What would they have had? This the.
They'd have normally had a squadron marking on the tail.
Right.
Or group marking. But because it really didn't have a fuselage worth talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
They decided to put it on the tail there. But
I see what you mean.
that may be an artist's rendition and not based on a.
They do try to. Keep things fairly factual. Have you seen these before?
Yes.
Yeah. I think
Yes.
R2Y2,
Yeah.
or as some people like to call them, the R2D2.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting addition. Yes.
Amazingly, not a knockoff of the 262.
No.
Because that's what the first thing goes through. Oh, it's just copying the 262.
No. It's using the same principles, but it's definitely not a copy.
What I like about this line of jets is that you go to the next one, and they were giving that style a go.
Looks like a Supermarine attacker.
Yeah.
To be honest, from a.
But it's virtually kind of the same plane, but the next iteration.
And the Japanese, of course, were quite sensibly used a lot of parts from other aircraft in the new design. So
yeah,
I wouldn't have been surprised if a lot of those parts
this
came
one.
from other aircraft.
I mean, they were really
Yeah,
You know, that's.
it's certainly worth thinking about.
Oh God, yeah.
Actually, that's very much like the French aircraft, the Mystère.
Yeah.
Very, very similar in its styling. Yeah. In fact, you'd almost think it was.
Wow.
Very nice.
Yeah, because also I don't know that much about. You know, I've got a much more limited knowledge on aircraft. So I mean, the first thing you kind of think with, for me, when I see those, you know, it's like MiG or Sabre sort of thing, but with
Yeah.
without the wings.
Very nice. Yeah. I know absolutely nothing about that particular plane.
No, that's what I was
No.
like. You know, I thought I'd show you that because it's definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, something that I learnt recently that you probably did already know. They're actually adding the Japanese tanks into Warthunder.
Oh, good. Yes. Yeah.
But one of the problems that certainly that they initially sort of thought would be a big problem was that in the war, the Japanese tanks that saw combat were like generally not a hell of a lot better than some of the World War, like the early war tanks.
Yeah.
But Japan itself did have a whole bunch of really good tanks.
Yeah.
But the Emperor had made the law that they weren't to leave the mainland, so that they were there
for defence.
Yeah.
So if the battle came onto the Japanese mainland, they would...
Yeah. Which is kind of sensible, because they probably wouldn't have been much use on islands outside Japan. But
no, not much. They'd have used them as pillboxes, really.
Yeah.
Which is how a lot of the tanks they did have ended up.
Yeah.
As virtually just dug in.
Yeah.
Sandbagged. Yeah.
So yeah, that was they're coming in, which is
good.
Which is good. As you can see, they really struggled to fill out the later part of the tech tree when you compare that to what the what the Brits and the Americans and the Russians have.
It'd be nice to get some French and Dutch aircraft in it.
That is Dutch. Yeah, that'll be
Fokker D21, the Fokker G1.
I don't know if we have.
The French Duotine would be awesome.
Yeah,
that was really good.
The two, because there's the French had a whole bunch of tanks, which I know of.
Was the best.
Yeah,
the best French tank.
But one of the things that somebody speculated was that the reason they weren't even talking about bringing French tanks in at the moment was they didn't have any French airplanes in yet. And it's almost like the order they seem to do things in is they develop the aircraft and the tanks
first, then
and then the ships. But were there many French-built aircraft in the Second World War?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So that's a definite possibility.
They certainly had as many as the British did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. The only problem, of course, was the fact that their national territory was taken over by the Germans before, where most of their planes were built. Had they been building planes in Algeria, New Caledonia, and the other French colonies, as the British, were building aircraft in Canada and Australia, then there's a possibility that more French aircraft would have been right through the war. In fact, French aircraft did serve through the war. A number of them were continued to be built by the Germans after occupation, and served in the Luftwaffe, particularly on the Eastern Front. But some even served in raids over Britain.
Wow.
And of course, a lot of aircraft were transferred to the Finns and to their allies. So yeah.
There's actually a couple of aircraft I can't even show here. Are there any? No, they recently added that.
That's some great aircraft.
Yeah. There's a couple of French aircraft in here, but I think they were both ones you could only get under special occasions, so they're not even shown here if you don't have them.
Yeah.
But yeah, because they've got a bunch of Italian aircraft, not a hell of a lot, but they're on the German tech tree, a bit like the Australians are on the... here we are. And the bombers, which is actually, they've got...
SM-79 is a very good aircraft.
It's really robust, actually.
Very robust, yeah. Its big handicap was its engines, really.
Yeah, it's really slow.
Yeah. Once you slapped American engines in them,
Oh God, a bit of a
they were really, really good.
Mm.
Yeah. And the MC-202, of course, the Folgore.
Oh yeah,
That was, as a fighter, was as good as anything the Allies had at the time.
yeah, so quick. Well, you said they were using it
Right up
quite
until,
competitively up until the end of the
up
war.
to the end of the
right?
war. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Centauro, of course, which was probably the best Italian aircraft of the war fighter.
Yeah.
And the Piaggio 108 bomber
Right.
was designed by a man who worked for Boeing
Oh, okay.
before the war, and he went back to Italy before the war with his knowledge of Boeing construction,
Yeah.
and he virtually built this. They said, designed this aircraft for us, and he designed the PA-18B, and it was as good, apart from its motors,
Right.
as the Boeing as the Fly Fortress.
Wow.
So
That's pretty remarkable.
yeah, and it served well too, but there weren't a lot of them.
No.
But they served the Italian Air Force, the Regia Aeronautica, and the Luftwaffe used them.
Yeah.
I don't think, as far as I'm aware, the co-belligerents didn't have any. I think they were already gone by that time.
Right.
They didn't make that many.
That was a question I had. Did the it was the Vichy French were the ones that were working with the Germans, wasn't it?
Kind of, yeah. They were the treaty forces. They were ones that it was a nominal neutrality.
Right.
They weren't actually working for the Germans, but they adopted anti-Jewish laws and things like that, so that they were
Kind
acquiescent
of
to the Germans.
Yeah.
And in North Africa, in the Vichy controlled colonies of Morocco and Algeria, and they had German officers there who were telling them what to do. So pretty much.
Yeah.
So when the Allies landed in Operation Torch in North Africa, the Germans were telling the French to fight.
Yeah.
And after a few days, of course, the French realised that they were not going to win,
Yeah.
and said to the Germans, "Well,
Yeah.
And of course that spelled the end of Vichy France, because then the German army then marched into Vichy France and closed it down. It was only under the tolerance of Germany that it existed.
Yeah.
Their army was very limited in number. Their equipment was still the old equipment that they had back in 1940. So, yeah, they were pretty much murdered. They didn't have a chance. But, funnily enough, they did put up a good resistance. When the Germans marched in Toulon, they actually scuttled their fleet.
Wow.
Because they couldn't get it out.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Germans thought they would, this would be handy, we'll grab ourselves the French fleet while we're here. And they suddenly found it was up to its decks in water. It was not good.
No.
And most of them then were salvaged by the Allies when the Allies took over.
Yeah, when you gotta
It didn't take long.
get that. Got time on your side, then it's
That's right.
not so hard to do. So yeah, because I was wondering if they, it kind of sounds like the answer would be no, but that whether there were any French aircraft developed after 1940 during the war.
Not really, because most of the French factories were put into production making German aircraft.
Making German aircraft, right? Yeah. So that would make doing a French. I suppose I'm just saying it would make doing a French tech tree quite hard, but I suppose immediately after the war, the French would have started.
Absolutely. I mean, after the war, the French certainly completed batches of German aircraft that they were building for the Luftwaffe and put them into French service. There's pictures of the Greif, the Heinkel Greif, with the 4 engines, the 277,
Oh, okay.
rather than the 177.
Yeah.
A much better aircraft, although they did have a couple of 177s as well with the composite engines.
Yeah.
But the 277, I've seen a couple of photographs of them in French marking, so I don't know how many they had.
Yeah.
Economically, it probably wasn't worth it. That you could buy, second-hand Liberators and Fortresses for virtually scrap, and have them, which they did. They had Martin Marauders. They were the last nation to use Martin Marauders in Indochina during the Indochina War. But
I suppose even back in those days, though, it was manufacturing your own stuff was a good way of helping to build up your industry.
industries, indeed, yeah.
And your research.
And
even.
the French were very wise like that, and the fact that they kept their industry going, they pretty much nationalised it. I think they did nationalise it.
Seemed like everybody was nationalising.
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
The Brits did the same thing.
Yeah, and they produced some superb aircraft, really superb.
Yeah, because that's definitely a possibility. I mean, you look at the, because probably the French aircraft would probably, during the war, would probably get up to about your. I mean, some of these are really like the Junkers 87's a great aircraft, but it's nothing special as far as performance goes.
Oh God, no! It was pretty much, unless it had fighter defence, it was a sitting duck.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why they used to call them Stuka parties, when they used to go in and literally massacre them.
Yeah.
And it was a great way for a pilot to get a good tally on his
Yeah, yeah.
on the side of his aircraft.